Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, co-founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, musicians, artists, you name it, all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I have an amazing guest. Actually, no, scratch that. I have two amazing guests. The first is their Chief Operating Officer, Konstantin Andriotis. And second is Alice Norman, who is the Chief Revenue Officer. Both of these men are at Hexens. Hexens is a cybersecurity company in the blockchain space that offers blockchain security, such as smart contract audits, security advisory, such as architecture audits, and full-scale pen tests like cloud testing and stress testing and stuff like that. They have a whole array of cybersecurity offerings. And this is going to be an amazing podcast today. So I'll welcome both men to the show. Konstantin, Alice, welcome.
Thanks for inviting us.
Mel, thanks for having
me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'll kick things off. I'll start with Konstantin first, and I'll ask him what your background is, Konstantin, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
I love this question. Thanks for asking. So I have a very rich life. I'm a Russian opposition leader in exile, and I cannot go back to my home and meet my family. So I used to work in a software development company that used to be hired by IOHK to develop Cardano and then Tezos as a separate project. Spent also a year in bank, and I sang an opera for a couple of years. And that's it. Is it logical? Not sure, but that's it. Yeah.
And Ellis?
So I would say a interesting journey, no question about it. So I started my career in commodities, basically the last time the world fell out of bed. Stayed in that for quite some time. Then back in 2017, started one of the first crypto IRA companies here in the States, where we had an exit to a private buyer back in 2019. I've been doing sales, go-to-market, and revenue operations for about the last 20 years. So went back into helping startups. Pandemic hit, and long story short, was helping to lead one of the largest developer communities globally called Hacker Earth, where we were basically helping L1s and L2s do developer acquisition, and found Hexens and love at first sight. Think that cybersecurity is obviously a tier one major problem in DeFi. If we're looking at, in crypto in general, and candidly at Hexens, we very much feel that security is the biggest barrier to mass adoption because of its barrier to regulation. So until things are secure, we're not going to cross the regulatory barrier, and we're not going to see that mass adoption happen. So it's the front line, to say the least.
I want to dive right into that. I want to dive right into your opinion, both of your opinions on what Hexen's approach is to Web3 security.
Yeah, so Hexen's position ourselves in we're not only self-claimed, but being trusted by the top tier market leaders in blockchain technologies such as Polygon, 1inch, Lida, and many others. And we're an elite cybersecurity solutions provider with a top-notch quality. So that's it.
To that, as far as the methodologies that Hexens kind of uses when we're going through a smart contract or a security review, is very manual first and foremost. We believe that there's no replacement for the human kind of logic and interaction that goes through a security review process. So everything that we do is very hands-on, extremely deep technical dives, and at a very bare minimum contains at least 4 senior auditors going after every single scope. So then that's beyond the individual methodologies or different kind of practices that we might put into place to find vulnerabilities. So
yeah, I would also add that we are not limiting ourselves as just a service provider. We're expertise provider and building some really depth tech tools inside that we're gonna slightly touch during the interview, I believe.
We are, hopefully. I want to know about those tools. I want to know Yeah, let's talk about those tools first. Then I want to talk about bottlenecks after that.
Yeah, I guess like it's all interconnected. And if you're asking about the bottlenecks, I have something to share. Like we were talking about it with a lot of my colleagues, with Alice, when we spent last week at Permissionless and then in New York at some event. How it's called, Alice? Do you remember? Whatever. So I had a lot of talks. Oh, mainnet. Yeah, thanks a lot. So I had a lot of talks with government officials from different countries in the last year, spoke with institutional representatives, and of course, our colleagues at cybersecurity and DeFi enthusiasts. So my opinion about the bottlenecks and like the product we're building to solve it all is very complex, and I would divide the answer into three different but related parts when discussing security as a bottleneck. So the first one is the secureness of retail investors' assets. A lower amount of money invested consequently leads to lower attention to related risk. Despite the number of cybersecurity services and products in the market, none of them actually can be a bulletproof solution to secure assets and data from malicious actions. Some of the technologies represented and hyped now are based on machine learning. And a small disclaimer, of course, there can be a discussion how effective it could be, but I personally, and we at Hexas in general, are more focusing on delivering and using deterministic solutions to solve these kind of issues. And some of them are trying to solve these problems differently, but no high efficiency yet. So in summary, retail investors wouldn't pay a lot to mitigate the risk of investing to some protocol for DeFi protocol. Imagine yourself order a comprehensive security review for a round number of 50K before you invest in something. For me, it sounds incredible. I guess for you either. So the second one is about infrastructure security. Last year was a year of infrastructure projects, and we have seen a bunch of ZK rollouts released, a lot of liquid staking solutions, governance updates, and etc. So this type of businesses is much more willing to spend on security and eventually can afford spending thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be sure they are good to go. For example, one of our clients, Lida, simultaneously performed 6 or 7, I don't remember the exact number, audits before the V2 launch with the withdrawal staking. And this approach makes sense. At the same time, so some other players can straightforwardly lie about passing audits or choosing more conventional security services, which in turn can be good for retail purposes, but like not for infrastructure. So, and here comes the third bullet. Regulation, as far as the industry, has no established standards and is constantly evolving. A small story. So one of our customers' representatives in a private discussion told me that he came to Web3 from a huge enterprise from the classical world. And now he's suffering because the conditions are changing basically every couple of months, really hard to follow. And imagine how hard it is for governments or financial institutions that are trying to analyze everything, including all the risk mitigation. And we at Hexens really believe that the market are now in need of a deterministic solution to get rid of the human factor mistakes at the development deployment stage, because in Web2 world, there are a bunch of security layers that can prevent attacks or any other malicious actions. And Web3 is direct and simple. Deploy your code and operate with multiple figures amount of assets. And we're developing something that, in our opinion, will disrupt the market, and we're planning to announce it in next months.
Interesting. Alice, what's your take?
I'm like Costa said, I think that the need for comprehensive tooling and different methodologies to cover all of the different pieces of the security lifecycle are 100% necessary. Audits and security reviews are just one piece of a security machine that essentially needs to be built and constantly running. And it's not only the risk assessments and the security reviews, it's also the existing bug bounty challenges, the competitive bug bounty challenges or contests that you might do, as well as the ongoing threat management that you need to implement across all of the different things that we do. So I think that it's not as simple as just kind of having a rubber stamp and checking a box and saying that your security is done. it's an ongoing, constantly evolving process. And let's face it, the hackers are not sleeping.
You're right. You're right. Even I, the Telegram channels that I'm on, and I get these bug bounty airdrops all the time on Twitter or X, and I'm like, I gotta block like so many people every day. It's crazy. So I hear you. So over this past week, let's talk about some of those things on Twitter a little bit. Over this past week, a few major coins, not named Bitcoin, but Bitcoin did go up notably this week. A lot of YouTubers, a lot of people on social media were shouting all about the bull run. I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, that bull run is going to happen next year, but the prices are up. When does a bull run? Is my question for you. And then what are some of the associated stop factors and political signals necessary for the bull to run?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. And before I'm gonna answer that, I want to put two small disclaimers. So first is that I personally love to mitigate all the risk I'm dealing with, and I never invested in any altcoins ever. And the second one, all what we're talking here are not a financial advice, right? So yeah, however, I strongly believe that right now we're at the very beginning of the biggest crypto bull run ever possible, but that's not the start yet. So today's market conditions with highest interest rates of central banks over past decades, inflation and political instability in the world are the reason why we would agree with you that before a pump we will see a dump, right? So still, Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the most interesting asset to invest it for multiple reasons that I'm gonna tell you a little bit about. So first one is liquidity. Probably our listeners are mostly from Western countries and have never felt a long economic crisis themselves. But in my life, I have faced it many times while living in Eastern Europe. So the main point is that your assets should have a huge liquidity on the bear market. Stocks, futures, or any other conventional financial instruments are out of this, unlike Bitcoin. It's really the digital gold. You can buy it everywhere, store it everywhere, buy it with a relative stable price, and sell in a few seconds for cash no matter where you are and who you are. The second bullet is risks. If you invest in stocks during the crisis, the company potentially could hide its problems from auditors and from the market. And you probably can lose your investments just in one day, or like not all, maybe not all, but the major part, especially now. So besides all the FUD and untrust of traditional finance, Bitcoin, in my opinion, would never lose its cost. On the contrary, it will grow till it exists, most likely, of course. So, and the last bullet is about the relativity of BTC and other altcoins like Ethereum or any other ERC-20 tokens that right now are traded everywhere. So nowadays, BTC traders are generating volume and simultaneously are trying to get more profit by diversifying their portfolios to higher risk assets like altcoins. And I'm sure in a few years, ETH and other altcoins will lose their connection to BTC, and prices would desync as soon as institutional money will come to the market more and more.
Okay. Let me back up a little bit. You guys do service offerings for Web3, right? But you're saying you only invest in Bitcoin, right? And then you just discuss liquidity, risks, and relativity. Aren't they different? Like, isn't those three things different from Bitcoin versus everything else? And what should people look for in the bull run for Bitcoin versus everything else?
I will just say that if I had a crystal ball, I would be a rich man on an island with a drink in my hand somewhere. And yeah, anybody that can claim that they're going to call the next top, absolutely run for the hills, right? Big red flag. To Costa's point, Costa very firmly believes in Bitcoin, right? We also are very much Ethereum maxis. All of these opinions are just opinions and not necessarily held by the company as a whole. But at the end of the day, I think that there are certain systemic risks that come into counterparty liability, like you see in emerging tokens, let's call it. So what might outperform on the bull cycle? Who knows, right? But it seems like, if history be our guide, that Bitcoin is the tide that lifts all ships, right? So we see that little bit of a bump, and here we are off to the races after 24 hours, and everybody's all happy again and ready for the next, spring. So, yeah.
I see that. But there are underlying systemic political risks, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what are some of those we need to watch for, and how they develop over this next year?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about just macroeconomically, obviously we've got proxy wars going on all over the world right now, everything going on in, Israel, everything that's going on in Ukraine, not to mention runaway inflation, all of the different types of things that are going on in tandem, right? So at the end of the day, I think the ultimate point that Custer was trying to kind of echo is that diversification is it's a tool and it's a strategy, and it needs to be implemented. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket in any type of environment, be it a bull market or a bear market.
Yeah, that's right. And like a small addition about the future, like next couple of years, what's gonna take. So I really believe that next bull run will not be fully in a DeFi space. For me, it seems like that ZK Rollups or other rollups or other emerging technologies will bring new real world usage cases to the market in terms of, like, once again, data usage, computation, or other purposes we cannot imagine right now. So, and this trend is already taking place. Traditional companies with like a huge century-long history in different industries are trying to get a competitive advantage by simplifying their operations with low cost, easy to use solutions on chain. And if we're talking about industries, it's healthcare, like that, data processing, fintech, and more industries to come. So, answering the question about the future, I'm eager to see either, but I see Bitcoin as a future stable digital investing asset, and the Ethereum ecosystem as a data in finance instrument rather than just like a investment thing,
Yeah, I see Bitcoin as money and Ethereum as technology. That makes it simplistic for me to understand, right? Um, but you did say, the bull, in order to have the bull run, you have those three things. But we also said that there are bottlenecks, right? There are bottlenecks for mass adoption, right? So how are we going to break through those current bottlenecks? And is breaking through those bottlenecks an absolute necessity?
Can you speak to a little bit more of some of the bottlenecks you might want us to kind of unpack, for an example?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, so the Web3 security is mostly a bottleneck, but there are some other ones like political risk, obviously. But there are some further, bottlenecks for mass adoption. I don't know what they are yet, so I'm asking what you think they are, and if overcoming those barriers are necessary.
I think
Yeah.
I'll take this one just for a second, Costa. So I think that we in Web3 have a few different challenges in front of us if we're talking about actual mass adoption of the technology. The first and foremost being the, let's call it, steep learning curve of terminology, verbiage, coding language, and everything else. Until the tech is deeply, let's call it, usable across the most popular programming languages, you're not going to see mass adoption on a developer front, A. Then B, if we're looking at the things that are getting built in Web3 right now, you're seeing a lot of the same things being built over and over and over and over and over again, right? How many Uniswap forks do we really need? Okay. At the end of the day, what will really drive mass adoption is getting the verbiage uncouched in all of this Web3 terminology and making it more appealing to the masses, number one. Number two, finding actual use cases that blockchain supports on an enterprise level that actually generate revenue, right? That's the actual underlying point of all of this, is actual business going on, right? So until we see things getting built that have an actual use case that businesses can take to the market, you're not going to see, quote, mass adoption at the end of the day. And I'll give you an example. So there's a client that we're advising separately about some interest in DLT and blockchain for a healthcare system. It's a 56-unit hospital system. It's based out of New York. They're interested in doing some innovation and stuff like that and applying blockchain to everything from patient monitoring to supply chain and all of these different use cases inside of a hospital system. That's real, right? That's got actual real world impact, and you can design a deck and a pitch and an actual business use case around that and then take it to market. So I think that until we start to see the Web 2ification of Web 3, you're not going to see true mass adoption until we can dumb all of this down. At the end of the day, nobody cares how email works. We care that it gets sent, right? That's the reality. So I think there's a lot in there, but just my 2 cents.
That's a good 2 cents, more than 2 cents. So,
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would also add, like, I have a couple of the issues we're all trying to resolve right now. I mean, like in Web3 space, Web3 builders are now confidentiality, blockchain, performance, transactions cost, and speed. But it hasn't changed in the last few years, right? So to illustrate better, here are a few cases that come to my mind about like some institutional or enterprise usage are right now taking place in the market. So Nubank, one of our clients, is the biggest retail bank with a number of customers outside of China. Recently launched its own token and blockchain to relaunch their own loyalty program. And as spoiler, it overcomes all their expectations. So the main issue on their side was to develop and design a system that could afford a huge number of transactions per second. They managed to do that. And now it's probably the most used and loaded private blockchain in the world with 30 million monthly users. Another case is we all heard about institutional players like BlackRock, JPM, and others are focusing on tokenizing their real assets, and it's super interesting. The thing I mentioned while talking about Bitcoin, its liquidity. So is the key point why all institutional players are diving deep into blockchain technologies. It's the ability to sell a real world assets with a few clicks that can navigate institutional players to be more effective, fast, and brave in their operations. And I really believe the world will never be the same as it today, just in a couple of years with using a blockchain.
interesting you mentioned that. BlackRock. They are already invested in Bitcoin because they have they're like a 9 or 10% shareholder of MicroStrategy, right? They are applying for this ETF. So are many other companies. What do you think? Is this ETF, necessary to move the industry forward, or do you think we can move forward without it?
Well, of course, we can move forward without it, but all the ETF and all of this like legal US compliance is all about the controlling the market. So if somebody like a BlackRock, big institutional player, will take a mechanism to like control the market, I mean, it's going to be their trading platform or something, then it comes to control, and that's it. Of course, we can do we can see a next bull run without any ETFs. But there is an instrument to like get more capital in the market.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned a little earlier that the next wave is not going to be DeFi. I think that triggered the first bull market was the DeFi summer of 2020, and then everything else followed. So, I'm going to go back to when does the bull run, right? The bull runs when there's a spark, right? So if it's not going to be DeFi, if it's not going to be a second DeFi summer, is it going to be Bitcoin, or what do you think is going to be the catalyst?
That's a great question. And like before that, I would touch a little bit sensitive topics of all of the like bottlenecks on the other side, on the user side. Right, so the community right now is really concerned about about like I believe you heard about horrible things that happened a few times in the last few months to crypto millionaires, about like the murder, disappearance, and like dismemberment and all this kind of stuff. So by design, blockchain is a transparent system, and however, keeping your wealth confidential is crucial to save to your personal safety, right? So with various on-chain analytic tools and techniques that everybody can use right now, revealing the owner's personal information is quite easy. And combine it with the mandatory KYC with possible data breaches and trends for transparency of financial operations worldwide, the concern is clear for me. And there come the solutions like ZK rollups, encrypted protocols, and more tools to keep your data private as much as a regulator will permit you to, right? And the last, but like not the least example related to the community is new instrument to work with on second generation blockchain, mostly Ethereum. So like liquid staking and subsequently restaking has the potential to reshape the usage of Ethereum at all. So yeah, but it's like a deep technical topic, and I think some of our engineer can tell you more about it at the next podcast.
Restaking. Yeah, that's deeply technical. I know we've graduated a ways from, there used to be yield farming was popular, and then staking, and then using CeFi entities which imploded on everybody, and now restaking. How have the security parameters improved so that the restaking is reliable and trustworthy?
So there's like 2 layers of security we can talk right now. So one is like on the transaction level, when you're considering transaction to be malicious, or some products scoring it or preventing malicious transactions, whatever. And another one at the code level. So basically all the cybersecurity, like this audits, security reviews, and all the manual work, working in the code level. Yeah, and we're working the code level, and without the solutions that can provide the top-notch security at the code level, at deployment or pre-deployment stages, it's impossible to find a proper usage case for Ethereum. And we're trying to solve this problem, and so far it's like going super great, and we're super ambitious about building like a multi-billion-dollar worth company in the next couple of years.
Great. Awesome. So let's talk about the next couple of years, what Hexen's approach is to it, and what you have lined up for, you don't have to share your whole entire secrets, but what the future for your company looks like over the next couple of years, and how you plan on addressing the main crypto topics, going on.
Yeah. So there's like very difficult questions, just because like Web3, as we already mentioned, changing every quarter, and we cannot predict, we cannot like make budget for a year or 2 years or even 3 years as an enterprise in classical world doing. So, but let me develop a topic. I mentioned that we're focusing our force like on these deterministic solutions. Yeah, it's a long topic to talk about, and probably a much wider than one just blockchain technologies, but still. So in psychology, in math, in gaming, in engineering, and literally everywhere else, there are 2 types of approaches people choose for themselves to solve issues. So vertical versus lateral, a way of thinking, or data-based approach versus deterministic. Lateral is as Wikipedia says, it's a manner of solving problems using an indirect and creative approach via reasoning that is not immediately obvious. It involves ideas that may not be obtainable using only traditional step-by-step logic. And vertical, in opposite, is a type of approach to problems that usually involves one being selective, analytical, and sequential. So in other words, one is using previous data, And the second is trying to understand game rules and design a technology that can elaborate new game rules. So we at Hexens firmly believe that we're in the right way to develop technology that would understand the rules of blockchain execution, especially Ethereum, of course, and like blockchain technologies, and mitigate the risk of security issues such as transaction, malicious actions, and more by operating at the code level instead of working with data. And yeah.
Very cool. Ellis, what do you look forward to over the next couple of years?
I think that there are some amazing projects that are building right now, candidly, and some very, very amazing teams that are putting this work together. Like any other emerging market, I think that you're going to see 99% of projects fall away and be replaced by new ones that come up, and the ones that stick and have staying power are going to be the ones that help to transform all of this. And fortunately, and the way that things are, and Hexen's expertise, we're able to align ourselves with those projects that are here for the long run. So again, think that we're going to see some great things coming out of staking, restaking, like we had mentioned. Also in the ZK space, there's a ton of stuff happening right now with MPCs, MEVs. There's tons of different areas, and we are still so early that really there's tons of infrastructure that just still needs to be built. So there's still places to focus your attention that can have a ton of impact, and I'm excited to see what the next quarter brings. It feels like every day in crypto is like 10 years in real life.
Yeah, I feel 150 years old. No, I'm kidding. I do a follow-up for you, Ellis. I used to, when I was in corporate America for my career, I would be the guy who sat between the C-suite, where I captured all the chief risk information officer and all their requirements, and the coding developers, right? And I would sit there and I would translate, and I would go back and forth and build systems and infrastructures, right? I call that, improving the user experience, at least from an enterprise perspective. You talked about the user experience needed to be improved. What would you like to see as far as that user experience be improved, and how do you think we can get there?
I think, well, there's a lot of different ways. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't think that using Web3 is very clunky at best still. Think that wallet integrations and functionality is critical. Think that, again, going back to removing a lot of this verbiage, like wallets, replacing it with accounts, right? Doing the Reddit NFT kind of, sleight of hand, digital collectibles, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's more important that functionality be put in the forefront than trying to force someone to operate in a Web3 native fashion, right? It should be a choice at the end of the day. So I think that, yes, until my mother or grandmother could actually pick up a program, sign in, create an account, and actually engage with these technologies, we're a long way off, right? And unfortunately, you can't have usability being gated by education, right? If it's a extremely usable platform, someone should just be able to pick it up and turn it on and be able to extract value from it without having to read up on what is this, what is that, and what does it do. That's a barrier to entry currently, right? So until we can get rid of a lot of these barriers, until we can make it more functional and less deeply technical, the more we're going to be continuing to play in the exact same communities with the exact same players over and over and over again, right? Think that everybody in the circuit knows all of these familiar faces. It would be great to see a new round, right, come into the market. So,
got it. Thank you. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. And I enjoyed our conversation, and I thought it went really well. I don't usually have two people on at the same time, but this actually worked out really well. So thank you very much. I have one last question, and how can it's basically this, and it's how can people find out more information about Hexens, to find out what Hexens is more about? How can they contact either one of you? How can they become clients or customers? How can they do any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the easiest way to reach out is just go to Hexens.io. If you're looking for quotes of services or just kind of a breakdown of the different things that we provide, hop online, check out the services page. There's a little box that you can actually put in your information and get a quote. We're extremely quick, so we'll be responsive within minutes after we receive a request. You can also reach out to us on Twitter, Telegram, via email at info@hexens.io. And yeah, we're excited to and happy to speak to any projects that are building right now, regardless of the tech stack or where you might be on a maturity level. I would say happy to provide some value.
Awesome. And any final words, Constantine, from you?
Yeah, thanks for reminding once again. I'm really enjoying the conversation. Thanks for listening and stay safe, guys.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.